welcome to Peninsula Backstage, the show that looks inside local live theater and talks about upcoming productions that you can go see. I'm Nina Perry, and I'm your host. Bullets Over Broadway is a stage musical based on Woody Allen's 1994 film of the same name. It features jazz and pop standards from the 1920s and 1930s, and it was nominated for 6 Tony Awards in 2014. Foothill Music Theater is performing Bullets Over Broadway from February 28th through March 17th at the Lohman Theater on the Foothill College campus. Today on Peninsula Backstage, we'll be talking with Milissa Carey, who's directing Bullets Over Broadway, Adam Catugno, who's playing the role of David Shane, and Alli Townsend, who's playing the role of Ellen. Melissa and Adam and Alli, welcome to Peninsula Backstage.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. So Melissa, without giving too much away, tell us about Bullets Over Broadway, the musical. When and where does it take place? What's the premise?
It takes place in the late 1920s in New York, and the premise is we have a young playwright who's trying to get his play produced, and he needs money, and the producer decides the best way to have that happen is to get a gangster to give them the money. And then, of course, that has a little bit of a wrinkle because the gangster has a girlfriend who might not be the most talented actor ever, but is now going to be in the play. Comedy ensues.
Very good. All right, so this is about show business and about gangsters.
Yeah.
So why do you think that plays and musicals about these kinds of walks of life are so popular?
That's a great question because there's a couple, right? There's Guys and Dolls, and then Kiss Me Kate has that wonderful iteration where the gangsters come into the...
Yeah.
I think it's a juxtaposition of two things that don't go together, and then it just becomes comical. Also, in this time period, we have these iconic images of, you know, the pinstripe suit wearing gangsters who are controlling the town.
Right.
So.
Right. Great. So, Adam, what drew you to this material?
Well, I mean, it's Woody Allen, which is, he's a fantastic writer. I mean, the book is fantastically hilarious. And the fact that it's all jazz standards is also really fun. There's not a lot of shows that take jazz standards like that and they're slightly adapted to fit the plot, but it's unique, and the music is really fun to do. And overall, it's just it's just a great script, great work.
Okay. Alli, how about you? What is your favorite part about this musical or this production of this musical?
It's definitely the music. I've actually been singing the songs that my character gets to sing in the show for the past several years. They're in my audition book. So I take this music into auditions all the time, and I'm really excited to actually get a chance to perform it on stage for an audience. That's going to be great. But yeah, it's the jazz standards, absolutely.
Okay. So is your approach to singing these jazz standards different from singing, what might traditionally be in what we think of as the American musical?
Yeah, there's a different vocal quality to it, of course, and also a lot of musical theater, it's written pretty strictly and notated pretty strictly, and in this case, and especially with just jazz in general, there's a lot of flexibility. You can play around with it. You can. The fun in jazz is in the rests, in the spaces between the notes, so you can play around with some of that, the rhythmic differences, and so it's a little more flexible. And our musical director has been really great about helping us find kind of some really great some great creative choices there.
I had a music teacher, and one of the reasons I fell in love with music actually was through jazz standards. I'm from Indiana. Cole Porter is from Indiana. And so we went through one of Cole Porter's Great American Songbooks when I was in elementary school, maybe.
That's great.
Yeah. Anything Goes is my favorite musical for a reason. But the one thing that they taught us was respect the melody, learn the melody, respect the melody, and then you can move outside of it, and that's where all the fun of playing with jazz really comes in.
Great. So this musical is different in that the plot came first because it was based on a movie that was not a musical, and then the songs were added.
Right.
So tell us about how the songs are integrated, and were they, Adam mentioned they were adapted a little bit. How were they adapted?
We call that convention the jukebox musical, where we take the existing songs and then we put a book around it. This one's a little bit different in that we had a really solid book with a Woody Allen script. And so they went looking for songs. There was an attempt to have Marvin Hamlish write some songs, write a traditional score for it. Didn't quite work. So at some point, Woody Allen and his sister came up with the idea of, oh, well, it's in the 1920s. Let's put jazz standards in. And then working with Susan Stroman, they went and found the songs that pretty tightly fit a dramatic moment. They're rearranged a little bit to expand or contract or become a duet to fit the story.
Okay.
So they're as smartly put in as the jokes that are in the script.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about the jokes. I mean, Woody Allen, it needs no introduction, but how would you characterize his style of humor? And what are the rewards of doing comedy like this?
I mean, it's so witty. The dialogue is so witty, and it's so quick. So that's one of the things is right now we're working on getting off book, which is getting the scripts out of our hands and having everything memorized. And everything has to move very fast. So even when you're trying to find the words, it's not quick enough. So the pace of the show, because of the writing, is snappy. It's very quick. So it's a challenge,
Okay.
but a wonderful challenge because it's written in such a great way.
Okay.
Yeah, his style of writing is just what we'd expect, and in a way you don't have to hit the joke, so you don't have to try and tell the joke. If you just land that line, it's perfectly delightful. And because it becomes a farce, it gets faster and faster. It gets quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker. So it starts out quick, and then it just goes,
All right.
madcap.
All right. Alli, what do you like about doing comedy?
The timing, how smart you have to be all the way through. It's so hard. Also, the authenticity. The trick in the comedy is that there is no trick.
Right.
It has to be straight on, or it's not a genuinely funny thing.
Right.
If you're trying to be funny, sometimes you're not going to be. So I think it's just about being authentic. It's really hard.
It's true. Comedy is hard. That's what they say. So, Adam and let's talk about your characters a little bit.
Sure. So I play David Shane. He's a struggling writer, and he's just written this play. He's written a number of plays that have kind of all flopped, and he thinks that that's attested to the fact that people have tried to change them, the actors and directors who have worked on them. So he wants to write and direct this show. He's not the best playwright. he thinks he's great, but he's actually not the best. So there's some fun stuff that comes out of that in the show as well. But it's a really fun character to play.
Great.
Yeah. So I'm playing Ellen. I'm playing David Shane's long-suffering girlfriend. They have been, at the time you meet them in the play, they have been a couple for 10 years, which in the 1920s is unheard of.
Right.
So
without being married.
Without being married.
Right.
So they live together in Greenwich Village in New York. They're not married. I think Ellen is at the end of her rope with the situation that she's in. And she wants a commitment from David that he is still putting off, I think, in pursuit of his dreams of becoming a director and a playwright. So a lot of the interactions between Ellen and David are going to be centered around the fact that she's not getting what she wants out of the relationship, and he's not really acknowledging that at all.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We are going to see a little glimpse of this dynamic because our Peninsula Backstage field crew went to a rehearsal to get a look at what happens in the weeks before a show opens. So in a moment, we're going to watch that clip. So can you tell us where in the rehearsal process this clip was shot? So how long had you been rehearsing, and how many weeks, days till opening night?
This was early on for a staging rehearsal. We'd been in rehearsal for a couple of weeks, but the scene we're mostly looking at is we did an early scene and a later scene. So in the later scene, it was really the first night of what we call blocking, staging. Okay. So I like to, when I have actors like these guys who are super adaptable and playful, just get people up and moving and get the energy going. So it's kind of cool that you were able to film something was the initial part of the staging, because now that scene does not look like it did at that night. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So since it was so early, we don't have costumes yet or props or sets, and the actors are not off book yet with the lines.
Right.
But yes, with the music.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, we had learned the music already.
Okay, okay. And the clip features portions of a song called I Found a New Baby. And Alli, is there anything you want to say about this song before we watch?
I think this is a point in the play where Ellen is actually advocating for herself in a much stronger way than maybe she has anymore. I think they've had a lot of conversations about what she wants out of a relationship, and at some point, I think she's got to try something else.
Okay, all right. Let's watch.
We've established that this is what you guys do, so I know why.
I've fallen in love with Helen Sinclair. I just want to be honest. It's one of those things. It happened. I didn't plan to.
So let's have you come literally first.
Okay.
You'll burst the door open.
Oh, there's a door.
There's a door.
I didn't know that.
There's a door. No, today there isn't.
Yeah.
And then stay there for a minute. I love it. So dramatical. And then come in a little ways and sit if you want, but keep your distance because you were expecting the conversation to go a very different way.
Yeah. I've fallen in love with Helen Sinclair. I want to be honest. It's just one of those things. It happened. I didn't plan to.
I'm not surprised. She is extraordinary.
Well, so are you. It's me that's all mixed up.
I have a confession to make.
I know. You knew it all along, and you were too damn decent to confront me while I was struggling with the play.
No. I've been seeing Sheldon Flender.
Sex?
That between the right two people, it becomes an art form.
Oh, you and Sheldon Flender are bringing intercourse to an art?
Not just intercourse. Foreplay, too.
You found a new baby.
I found a new baby.
You found a new boy.
I found a new boy.
That
sweet talking baby has filled me with joy.
You found a new baby.
All right, you guys, that's great. You're doing amazing for a piece we haven't done in a while, nor have we staged. So when we get to this part, I want you to do a little, just a do-si-do in a big circle.
Okay, confrontation circle.
Yield, confrontation. So, exactly. Got you. Yeah. So stay on it for sex and all that part. So you're gonna start it by backing up. Foreplay too. So back up, and then we'll be able to start that circle. So can we go right from sex?
Sex?
That between the right two people, it becomes an art form.
You and Sheldon Flender have raised intercourse to an art?
Not just intercourse. Foreplay, too.
You found a new baby.
I found a new baby.
You found a new boy.
I found a new boy.
That sweet talking
That
baby
sweet talking
has filled
baby
me with
has filled me with
joy.
joy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When she starts doing that, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
Horrifying. So give it a sec, and then run over there, and then you'll be able to grab his collar. Where can we pick it up so you can do the table work?
How about if he's overheated like an oven?
Yeah,
Sure.
sure. He's overheated like an oven. I'm way off.
That's okay.
Wrong.
He's hot as an
Let's start with your song.
I'm on the downbeat, so we should probably go with mine.
1, 2, 3, and.
He's hot as an oven.
Like an
He's
oven.
made
He's
me
made me
slave. Found a new baby.
Helps me good, oh so good. I should knock on wood. That's
Found a new
fine.
baby.
I just sigh, I just cry. The guy makes me fly my kite. That's right, I found a new baby. Go on, ask me why.
Why?
Found a new baby, so baby, why can't I?
Who found a new baby?
Oh my God, you guys are great. This is going to be a great show.
Thanks.
Thanks. Wow. So, Melissa, I have a question for you about the blocking and staging. So, you asked the actors to circle each other. So, do ideas like that come to you in the moment, or did you know in advance you were going to want them to do that?
Boy, that's a great question. I didn't know in advance that I would ask them to do that particular thing, but I often have actors, when we're starting to put something up, move a lot, just to get the energy of the physical movement matching what they're singing and talking about, what's going on. And then once we get it there, then we can craft it a little bit more tightly.
Okay.
But this was definitely what we were laughing because we called it the ye old confrontation
circle.
circle, which is a pretty standard thing that can happen in theater, where two characters have these opposing points of view. So that was that.
Great, great. So, Alli and Adam, tell me about your experience with being directed. You know, in general, and for this show specifically. I mean, what?
Sure.
Yeah. It's a big question.
What particularly? Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. You know, a lot. Different directors have different levels of input, of giving you kind of creative freedom to try different things, or no, I want you to do explicitly this, and especially if there's a clear idea, like for example, a confrontation circle. Milissa was like, please, let's try this. But things evolve from there, where in our own process and in going through working on the scenes, together, or working on the scenes in a rehearsal, we'll discover new things, we discover new ideas, and so that's how, from what you just saw, that actually has evolved to what we found, what we have now that's staged, and it's definitely a little different, but it's just an evolution, and and I think Milissa does a great job of giving us, the freedom to kind of explore that stuff, I think, and to really, helps us really craft, really strong characters.
Yeah. Directors keep everything together. I think everyone's seen a show on an amateur or a professional level where you look at the actors and you think they are in different shows. Milissa doesn't have that problem. I think every actor in our show, we're all in the same show, and so it's a lot of hurting all of these people to make sure that we're really telling the same story together, and I think that's probably the best part of working at Foothill for me is just how cohesive every story is. Yeah.
The energy of the show across the board for all of the characters feels like a cohesive unit, like it's all on the same level and it's all high. It's always usually a high, like high energy and fast pace, which especially for comedy, like Bullets Over Broadway is perfect.
Great, great. So, so we definitely got a taste of that high energy in the video clip. We're also going to see that high energy in a few still photographs that we're going to show. And these photographs are taken of the actors in costume. Yeah. So, Milissa, do you want to, here is the first photograph up. You want to tell us about this?
Yes, I do. So from the film, there's an iconic moment between our diva, Helen Sinclair, and she's very dramatic. She's a very dramatic person, and this is this is not a spoiler alert, but this is where the big moment where in something that was a very heightened emotional moment for her, she tells David Shane to don't speak. So that is the don't speak moment because she's off on something important, and because she is the important leading lady, her costumes are a little extravagant compared to some of the other people's.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Here's the next one.
Yeah. So this was this is 4 of the characters. So David is there clutching his briefcase because now he's at rehearsal and the play is maybe not what everyone thinks it's going to be. And that's Helen lifting the script next to him. She's thrilled because she's back in a play. She's needed a play. She's been off the boards for a little bit of a time. Next to her is the guy who's funding it. That's Nick Valenti, the gangster. Okay. And on the other end is Nick's girlfriend, the fabulous Olive, who's never been in a play before and is thrilled.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, we have one more photo.
Yes, so that's Olive and Nick once again. Olive, who's a very good certain kind of a dancer, is making an impression on Nick Valenti about that she really does need to be the lead in the play, and because she's that certain kind of a dancer, Nick thinks it's a wonderful idea.
I think I know what you mean. All right. right. Who is designing the costumes for the show?
Sharon Pang is designing the costumes, and it's such a fun period. So it's sort of flapper-ish. So it's when the skirts got shorter. So the Atta girls who dance in the club, they'll have a couple of outfits that are very much of that 20s flapper girl look. The gangsters look straight out of, Damon Runyon land. And then the various other characters who are so strongly drawn in the script will be costumed in a way that supports their character work.
Okay, very good. So you mentioned some dancing girls in the club. How much dance is there in this musical?
For our winter show, because we're in the smaller space, it's a fair amount because we're in this club. So our dancing girls have 3 dancing girl numbers. And then, of course, there's some train travel that happens in the show. And the dancing girls then become the
Red Hats.
The Red
I think
Hats,
is
thank
what
you.
they're- Yeah.
The Red Hats at the train station. And of course, what musical, you couldn't have this musical if the gangsters didn't have a little dancing, right? So our gangsters do a bit of dancing as well.
Okay, all right. So, and this show will be in the Lohman Theater, and that's the newer of the 2 theaters at Foothill, the other being the Smithwick. And so what challenges does the space pose for this kind of show, and what benefits does it have?
I don't think of it as a challenge anymore because I'm pretty familiar with it, but because it's small and it's wide, we almost are always rotating story as if it's in the round to make sure that everybody on either end of the space is getting enough of the story. What's delightful about it is that the audience is so close. So the audience is right up in this moment of conflict between this couple.
Okay. That's why a confrontation circle would work well.
Perfectly, moving around. Yeah, not cutting off any part of the audience is a challenge in that space, but it's a great challenge to have because and again, because you're really very close. So.
Okay. Great. Alli, you did a little dance move in the clip that we saw. How was tell us about, your dance experience, and are you more comfortable with singing and dancing or acting?
The faces they're making? I'm not a dancer at all, actually. I can move, and if you teach me what I need to do, I'll get there, but I'm not a dancer by training. I do get to Charleston a little bit, though.
Yeah, we get to do some Charleston.
We get to Charleston a little. Ellen is not a dancing part. She's not a dancing girl. She's actually not even a flapper. She's a bohemian artist. So David's a playwright, but Ellen's actually also an artist as well. She makes ceramics. So she's in Greenwich Village doing that. So she's probably one of the only non-flapper women in the show, aside from Helen, our leading diva.
Okay, great. So just really quickly, did you guys watch the film in preparation, or did you definitely not want to do that?
I did not.
Okay.
Because I haven't probably seen it for a while, but when I saw it, it's so good that I have really good memories, images in my mind. And so as I'm moving into a show, I need to make sure that I'm doing our show and not trying to recreate somebody else's. But I just remember, it's hilarious. That's what I remember.
Yeah, there's a balance for me for that too, where you can find productions of any show that you might be in, like Bullets over Broadway. You can find some bootleg production of it, on YouTube or something, and you could watch that. But I always want to make my own performance and try and make it something that's my own, and not try and steal too much, let's say, from what they did on Broadway. And same thing goes for the movie. So I personally actually haven't watched the movie or the show.
No, neither. I'm familiar again with the music,
and
I think that's as far as I got.
Great, yeah, great. So, Milissa, we just have a few minutes left. So quickly, what brought you to Foothill? How long have you been there?
I've been there for, as my mom would say, a month of Sundays. So I started there as an adjunct faculty member who was teaching musical theater, singing technique, and musical theater workshop. And then I moved over into directing at Foothill Music Theater, which was started, I actually looked it up, it became a thing in 1980.
Okay.
So it's been around, FMT has been around for a long while.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. And Adam and Alli, how did you get involved with Foothill?
Well, I had been in a couple of Foothill productions previously. I did Little Shop of Horrors there. I think I was nominated for a TBA award.
You were
indeed.
If I remember.
As Seymour?
As Seymour,
very
yeah.
good.
And then and I also worked with Milissa on Sunday in the Park with George. And so that's how I got associated with Foothill.
My first production was just a year ago, actually. I was in 9 to 5, the musical, a very different show.
And a very different character.
Definitely.
So I was Dora Lee, who is the Dolly Parton character in 9 to 5.
She had very big hair.
Okay.
I had a ton of hair. It was so much fun. We had a big hair and a big other attributes for that show.
Alli and I were both in that show as well. So, that was,
So he was also in 9 to 5.
I was a smaller role. Most of the women's roles are the prime event
smaller
there.
additions to your costume.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Less alteration.
Right.
Okay, very good. Well, we're almost out of time, so we're going to recap for our viewers that Foothill Music Theater's production of Bullets Over Broadway, the musical, is running from February 28th through March 17th at the Lohman Theater on the Foothill College campus in Los Altos Hills. And can you tell our audience where they can go online to get more information about the show?
We have a website, foothill.edu/theater.
Right, with theater with an R-E at the end.
Theatre. And then we have a box office phone number, and Chris in our box office can give people as much information as they need.
Okay, great. Peninsula Backstage is online also. We're on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/peninsula-backstage. Like our page if you're interested in getting updates when new episodes become available for viewing online and on the air. Once again, I'd like to thank our guests from Foothill Music Theater, Milissa Carey, Adam Catugno, and Alli Townsend. Melissa's the director, Adam's playing David Shane, and Alli's playing Ellen. And we thank you for coming today. Thank you for letting us come to your rehearsal. And finally, I'd like to thank our viewers. We appreciate your watching this episode of Peninsula Backstage. And remember to go out and support local live theater.